From the embers of revolution, a nation was born. The echoes of musket fire faded, replaced by the cheers of a hard-won victory. The Declaration of Independence, a bold proclamation of freedom, set the stage for a new era. But the path to unity was far from paved. The fledgling nation, scarred by war and burdened by economic hardship, faced internal divisions that threatened to unravel the very fabric of its existence. The Articles of Confederation, a first attempt at governance, proved inadequate, a fragile framework struggling to hold the disparate states together. In smoke-filled rooms and through impassioned correspondence, the Founding Fathers, giants of their time, grappled with the immense challenge before them. The need for a stronger union, a government capable of steering the nation through treacherous waters, became increasingly clear. The urgency in their letters, the fervor in their debates, painted a vivid picture of a nation on the brink. From these critical discussions arose a pivotal decision, the call for a constitutional convention, a gathering that would shape the destiny of a nation. Whispers turned to pronouncements, filling taverns and town squares alike. The upcoming election became the focal point of every conversation. A nation held its breath. In newspapers and pamphlets, the details of this novel process spread, fueling a mix of excitement and trepidation. Who would lead them? Could one person shoulder the weight of so many hopes and dreams? The uncertainty hung heavy in the air, mingled with the fragile hope for a brighter future. The dawn of a new era was at hand. At Mount Vernon, the world seemed a distant echo. Here, amidst rolling fields and the familiar comfort of home, George Washington had sought refuge from the storms of war and politics. He walked among his crops, a farmer once again, the quiet solitude a balm to a weary soul. Family and the simple pleasures of life replaced the clamor of public life. Yet, even in this tranquil sanctuary, the whispers of a nation's need began to intrude upon the quiet. The pleas arrived at Mount Vernon like a rising tide, letters bearing the weight of a nation's expectations, visits from figures of power and influence, all urging him, the reluctant hero, to step back into the fray. In the flickering candlelight, his face revealed the inner turmoil, the burden of leadership, a weight he had borne before, threatened to disrupt the hard-won peace he now cherished. The call to duty wrestled with the desire for respite, the question of his nation's future etched upon his brow. To his closest confidants, he voiced his reservations, his weariness, but within him, the unyielding sense of duty, the echo of a nation's desperate hope, burned bright. He understood the gravity of the moment, the trust placed upon his shoulders, and so, with a heavy heart but unwavering resolve, George Washington made a fateful decision, accepting the nomination and embracing a destiny he had not sought. The reluctant hero prepared to lead his nation once more. Imagine a nation connected by horse-drawn carriages and the written word, where news traveled at a measured pace. The electoral system, a novel experiment in democracy, unfolded across vast distances. Each state, a sovereign entity, selected its electors, who held the power to choose the nation's leader. Each elector cast 2 votes, a system designed to balance regional interests, with the runner-up destined to become vice president. Information trickled from state to state, creating a mosaic of anticipation as the pieces of this new political puzzle slowly fell into place. One by one, the votes were cast, each a testament to the faith placed in a single man. From across the nascent nation, The tally grew, revealing a groundswell of support, unlike any before. As the final count became clear, an air of awe settled over the nation. A unanimous choice, George Washington, their reluctant hero, now their leader. It was a moment of unity, a collective breath held in anticipation, as the weight of a nation's future rested on the shoulders of one man. The election was not just a procedure, it was a symbolic binding of a nation, a shared dream of a brighter future. News of the unanimous decision spread like wildfire. From bustling cities to quiet farms, celebrations erupted, a symphony of joy and relief echoing across the land. Faces etched with hope and optimism reflected the shared belief in a brighter future. They had chosen their leader, the man who represented their collective aspirations. And as the cheers faded and the celebrations drew to a close, the image of George Washington remained, a powerful symbol of the dawn of a new era, a beacon of hope for the American experiment. John Adams, a man of sharp intellect and unwavering conviction, stood as a pillar of the American Revolution. From the hallowed halls of debate to the battlefields where freedom was forged, his presence was undeniable. A glimpse into his family life, the warmth of his home, revealed the man behind the statesman. His voice, instrumental in the crafting of the Declaration of Independence, resonated with a profound understanding of the principles upon which a new nation was being built. Experience and intellect converged within him, a formidable force in the nascent political landscape. In the nascent American Republic, where processes were still being defined, an electoral peculiarity determined the path of leadership. John Adams, by virtue of receiving the second highest electoral count, was declared vice president. However, the parameters of this new office remained unclear. In a landscape largely uncharted, with minimal constitutional direction, the vice presidency held an air of undefined responsibility. In this new government, his precise role remained to be seen. While united in their pursuit of a new nation, Washington and Adams held contrasting visions of its future. Their approaches to governance, economic policy, were nuanced and distinct. These subtle differences, represented by the diverging paths they seemed to walk, hinted at potential future conflicts. Even as they stood shoulder to shoulder, the seeds of political factions were sown, differences in ideology waiting to take root. Across the 13 states, a patchwork of electoral processes unfolded. A map of this newly formed nation reveals a tapestry of approaches, each state wielding its own method of selecting electors. Some entrusted the choice to the people through popular vote. Others placed the power in the hands of state legislatures. This lack of uniformity underscored the experimental nature of the very first presidential election, a nation finding its way, its democratic experiment still very much in progress. From this first election, there were notable absences. North Carolina, Rhode Island, and New York remained on the periphery. Unratified constitutions and internal divisions kept these states on the sidelines, highlighting the ongoing debate around the parameters of this union. The new government launched amidst both optimism and discordance. Not every state has joined the ranks yet. The first presidential election, though imperfect, served as a pivotal step towards a more perfect union. It laid the foundation for future elections, each building upon the lessons learned, striving for a more inclusive and representative process. The challenges, visible and numerous, did not obscure the overarching significance. The peaceful transfer of power, a critical tenet of this fledgling democracy. It also signaled progress, not perfection, not yet, but progress toward a more participatory and mature union. Alexander Hamilton, a brilliant mind forged in the crucible of revolution, envisioned a nation built on a strong, centralized foundation. His vision, rooted in financial stability and industrial growth, propelled him to champion the idea of a national bank, the bedrock of a modern economic system. A strong central government, he believed, was essential to guide the nation towards prosperity and protect its interests on the global stage. Thomas Jefferson, a man deeply connected to the land, held a contrasting vision for America's future. Amidst the rolling hills of Monticello, his agrarian ideal took shape, emphasizing the importance of limited government and states' rights. He saw the nation's strength rooted in the independent spirit of its farmers, envisioning an economy built upon the bounty of the earth. His was a belief in the power of decentralized governance, a balance to the centralized approach favored by Hamilton. Caught between two powerful and opposing forces, James Madison sought to navigate a delicate balance. In spirited debates with Hamilton and Jefferson, he acted as a mediator, working to synthesize their contrasting visions. With skillful negotiation and strategic compromise, Madison attempted to find common ground, ensuring the nation's foundation rested on a harmonious integration of perspectives. In the nascent United States, the right to vote, a cornerstone of this new democracy, was a privilege enjoyed by a select few. Wealthy landowners, merchants, those deemed to have a stake in the land, held the power to shape the nation's future through the ballot box. For women, enslaved people, indigenous populations, and those without property, the very idea of participating in the political process remained a distant dream. The stark contrast, a visual divide etched across the social fabric, raised fundamental questions about the very nature of equality and representation in this new republic. The property requirements for voting are visible in historic documents of the day, illustrating which demographic made decisions for the nation as a whole. The question of who should have a say in government sparked heated debate. Within the halls of power, political figures clashed over voter eligibility. Some championed expanding the franchise, arguing for a more inclusive and representative government. However, prevailing thought dictated that only property owners held sufficient investment in society's success. To these men, only property ownership seemed worthy of informed political participation. As this exclusive group defined early American democracy, many remained unheard. Would there come a day that broadened these restrictions? The noble words enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, "All men are created equal," stood in stark contrast to the realities of early American democracy. Visuals of the revered document juxtaposed with images of those excluded, women, enslaved people, the disenfranchised, underscored the inherent contradiction and the promise, yet unfulfilled. It served as a stark reminder of the long and arduous journey towards universal suffrage and true equality for all within this fledgling republic. For whom did freedom ring if a whole segment of the population could not engage? In a momentous ceremony that echoed with the promise of a new era, George Washington stood before a nation and took the oath of office. The peaceful transition of power, a cornerstone of the burgeoning American democracy, unfolded before eager eyes. It set the bar for a new type of nation. This historical moment laid the foundation of American governance and ushered in a new government. As the symbols of authority were passed on, it was clear the experiment was underway. Beneath the veneer of national unity, differing ideologies began to emerge, like cracks in a newly formed foundation. Hamilton and Jefferson, each holding contrasting visions for America's destiny, embodied this growing divide. As their influence spread, so did the tension and division, threatening to fracture the hard-won harmony of the early republic. Despite the initial goal of unanimity, different approaches and strategies took seed. It foreshadowed conflict and would characterize Washington's years in office. From these opposing views, political factions solidified, gradually coalescing into the Federalist and Democratic Republican parties. Geographical and ideological divisions marked a political landscape being redrawn across the nation. Key figures aligned with differing political and economic philosophies rallied support for their respective causes. While Washington had been the unifying force for a new nation, these factions pointed towards disagreement and division moving forward. The birth of organized political opposition in the United States hinted at future clashes on the horizon.